The suffocating sensation was like an icy hand, gripping my throat in a death grip, ruthlessly squeezing the last bit of air out of my lungs. My vision began to blur, and the luxurious party lights around me transformed into grotesque, ghostly shadows, twisting and mocking my wretched state. Just minutes ago, my husband Ryan Sutherland, the man hailed on Wall Street as having the Midas touch, had presented me with this 5th wedding anniversary gift in front of all the guests. A bottle of limited edition essential oil, supposedly custom made by a master perfumer. I let him spray it on my collarbone without any guard up. It was an overwhelmingly nauseating scent of roses. I'm severely allergic to roses, a fact well known throughout the Sutherland family, even documented in my medical records. But in that moment, Ryan's gaze held no alarm, only a trace of casual impatience, as if waiting for me to flash a sweet smile like I had for the past 5 years, even if it meant swallowing arsenic. But I couldn't smile. In the second before darkness completely swallowed my consciousness, what I heard wasn't my husband calling for help, but that woman in the white lace dress in the crowd, Emily, letting out an affected gasp. Oh my God, did Rebecca faint from too much excitement? When I opened my eyes again, it was the harsh white lights unique to hospitals. No warm embrace, no anxious face, only the cold beeping of the heart monitor. The emptiness in my abdomen felt like a massive black hole, devouring all my senses. A mother's instinct. I didn't need the doctor to say anything. I already knew what had happened. That little life I hadn't had the chance to tell Ryan about. That child I'd been expecting for 3 months. Gone. In that very instant, it was as if a thick fog in my mind suddenly lifted. That plot compulsion that had controlled me for years, forcing me to tolerate Ryan without limits and put up with Emily like a brainless fool, it snapped completely like puppet strings cut loose. I bolted upright, gasping for breath, cold sweat soaking through my hospital gown. So that's how it was. So I had been living inside a sweet romance novel called The Billionaire's Stand-In Beloved Wife. I was that female lead who had to dumb herself down again and again for the sake of the plot, just to highlight how devoted the male lead was. And Ryan was that male lead with the angst trope. Cold and aloof at first, doting husband later. But now the story was over. The moment the author put down their pen, the protagonist's halo faded, and all those cruel truths hidden behind the sweet romance filter were finally laid bare before me, raw and bloody. This was never some sweet story. It was 5 years of psychological abuse and slow murder. The hospital room door was pushed open, and Ryan walked in. He was wearing an expensive handmade custom suit without even a single wrinkle, carrying a fruit basket in his hand, his face wearing an expression of concern that now seemed utterly hypocritical to me, but his eyes were nothing but cold. Following behind him was Emily, her eyes slightly red, as if she had suffered some tremendous grievance. "You're finally awake." Ryan casually set the fruit basket on the nightstand, his tone carrying a hint of reproach. "Rebecca, you were way too careless. Emily kindly picked out a gift for you, and even if you didn't like it, you didn't have to fake fainting on an occasion like that, did you? Do you know how many media outlets were there today? The PR department spent all night dealing with the trending topics. I stared hard at this man I had shared a bed with for 5 years. My baby was gone. I nearly died in the emergency room, and all he cared about was his face, his stock price, that damn media headline. Fake fainting? My voice was hoarse, cold as a blade quenched in ice. "Ryan, I'm allergic to roses, a deadly allergy. Did you forget that this was specifically noted in our prenuptial agreement back then?" Ryan furrowed his brow slightly as if trying to recall, then waved his hand impatiently. How could it be that serious? Emily said that essential oil was purified, different from regular roses, and good for the skin. She meant well. Emily immediately stepped forward, tears coming on command, looking all pitiful and helpless. If this were yesterday, I might have softened and wondered if I was being too sensitive. But now, I just felt disgusted. "Rebecca, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry," Emily cried with tears streaming down her face, reaching out to grab my sleeve. "I just thought that fragrance suited your temperament. I didn't know you would." "Ryan said you'd like it. That's why I recommended it. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't be mad at Ryan. See, what a perfect green tea bitch move." Pushing the responsibility away cleanly while also showing off her closeness with Ryan, it was Ryan, approved. Ryan put his arm around Emily's shoulders protectively, then turned to glare at me. "Enough, Rebecca. You've scared Emily to tears. The doctor said it was just anaphylactic shock, and you're awake now, aren't you? Stop making a big deal out of every little thing. It makes you look petty." "A little thing?" I suddenly laughed out loud, my chest shaking with laughter, tugging at the dull pain in my abdomen. "Ryan, I had a miscarriage." I said it calmly as if talking about today's weather. The air froze instantly. Ryan's arm around Emily went stiff. The impatience on his face finally showed a crack, but just a crack. He didn't rush over to hold me, didn't break down crying. Instead, he instinctively glanced at Emily. That look in his eyes wasn't guilt. It was a guilty conscience. "How could this?" he murmured, then his face darkened. "Why didn't you tell me sooner that you were pregnant? If you had told me earlier, how could I have let you spray that stuff? Rebecca, you're so irresponsible." This is the man I loved for 5 years. After learning he killed his own child with his own hands, his first reaction is to blame the victim. Because the plot has ended, he no longer needs to play the devoted husband. That selfish, cold-blooded, self-centered monster in his bones has finally been completely unleashed. "Get out!" I pointed at the door, my tone without a hint of fluctuation. "What did you say?" Ryan looked at me in disbelief, as if I were a lunatic. "I took time out of my busy schedule to see you, even pushed back the board meeting." I said, "Take your mistress and get the hell out." I yanked the IV needle out of the back of my hand, blood instantly gushing out, but I didn't even furrow my brow, my gaze piercing as I stared at him. Right now. Immediately. Maybe the murderous intent in my eyes was too intense. Maybe the sight of blood staining the sheets was too jarring. Ryan actually flinched. His face ashen, he pointed at me through gritted teeth. "Fine, Rebecca. Don't you regret this? When you calm down and come begging me, don't expect me to forgive you easily." With that, he grabbed Emily, who appeared panicked but had a smile hidden in the depths of her eyes, and strode out of the ward. The ward fell back into dead silence. I watched the blood dripping onto the back of my hand, and the last ember of love in my heart was completely extinguished. Regret? Of course I regret it. I regret being that fool who gave up myself for the so-called sweet romance. Regret feeding 5 years of my youth to the dogs. But from this moment on, the perfect trophy wife named Rebecca has already died in the emergency room. What's still alive is an avenger who crawled back from hell. Being discharged happened a month later. During this time, Ryan seemed to have vanished into thin air. Apart from having his assistant deliver a huge check as nutrition expenses, he never showed his face again. The number on that check bought out the last shred of his conscience as a husband and father. I didn't go back to our apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, but went directly to the beachfront villa in the Hamptons. Today is the weekend, and as usual, Ryan would bring our son Noah here for vacation. As the car drove into the estate driveway from afar, I could see a warm picnic taking place on that neatly trimmed lawn. The sun was bright, the sea breeze slightly salty. Ryan was wearing a casual white polo shirt, lying on the picnic blanket with a book in his hand. And beside him, Emily was wearing a floral maxi dress strikingly similar to a certain haute couture dress in my closet, head down cutting fruit, occasionally forking up a piece to feed Ryan. Not far away, my 5-year-old son, Noah, was chasing a golden retriever, his laughter crisp and clear. What a picture-perfect family of 3. If it weren't for the fact that I was the legal mistress of this house, this scene would be beautiful enough to bring tears to one's eyes. I got out of the car without having the driver announce me, walking across the lawn step by step in my high heels. The heels sank into the soft grass, each step incredibly heavy, yet unwavering. Noah was the first to notice me. He stopped in his tracks, still holding that little dinosaur toy he never parted with. The moment he saw me, there was no surprise on his face, no longing. Instead, there was a look of unfamiliarity, even tinged with fear. He instinctively took 2 steps back, then turned and ran toward the woman on the picnic blanket. "Mommy!" That crisp cry was like a heavy hammer, shattering my heart to pieces. I froze in place, even forgetting to breathe. Noah threw himself into Emily's arms, burying his face in the crook of her neck, pointing in my direction, and said timidly, "That lady is here. The lady who's always sick is here." Emily held Noah close and looked up at me. There was no panic of being caught on her face. Instead, she wore a victor's smile. It was a silent provocation, a flaunting after having taken over someone else's nest. Ryan sat up too. When he saw me, his brows furrowed into their habitual frown. "Why are you here? Didn't I tell you to stay at the apartment and rest?" His tone was full of displeasure, as if I were an uninvited guest who had barged in. "Look at yourself. Your face is pale as a ghost. Don't scare the child." I took a deep breath, forcing down the churning blood in my chest, and walked toward them step by step. "Noah." I ignored that pair of cheating scum, trying to make my voice sound gentle. "I'm Mommy. Don't you recognize me?" Noah peeked out with one eye from Emily's arms, looked at me, then at Ryan, and finally clutched tightly onto Emily's skirt. "No," Noah said quietly but firmly. "Daddy said you're a sick lady, that you'll go crazy and scare people. Auntie Emily is my new mommy who takes care of me." My hands and feet went ice cold, my nails digging deep into my palms. This is my wonderful husband. While I was lying in the hospital hovering between life and death, devastated beyond words over my lost child, he felt no guilt whatsoever. Instead, he was here brainwashing my own son, painting me as a crazy woman, and propping up the very person who caused my miscarriage as the new mommy. "Ryan," I turned my head, glaring at this man with bloodshot eyes. "So this is what you meant by very busy? Busy finding a stepmother for our son? Busy rewriting his memories?" Ryan stood up, brushing the grass off his pants, looking matter-of-fact. "Rebecca, stop being unreasonable. You weren't around during this time, and Noah needed someone to take care of him. Emily is very patient, and Noah really likes her. Besides..." He paused, his gaze sweeping contemptuously over my flat stomach. "You couldn't even keep the one in your belly. How are you going to take care of Noah? I'm doing this for the child's sake, too. Your mental state is very unstable right now. The doctor said you have severe postpartum depression tendencies and aren't fit to take care of a child." Postpartum depression? I almost laughed out of sheer anger. Depression after a miscarriage had become an excuse to strip me of my custody? Emily stood up at this moment, too, holding Noah, putting on a look of noble understanding. "That's right, Sister Rebecca. Don't blame Ryan. Noah is still young. This is exactly when he needs companionship. If you're not feeling well, just go back and rest. I'm here." That one word, sister, made my stomach churn. I watched Noah clinging to Emily's shoulder with attachment, watched Ryan standing protectively in front of Emily. Is this my ending? In that sweet romance novel script, no matter how badly the male lead acts out, the female lead always forgives him in the end, and then it's a happily ever after ending. But I am Rebecca. I am a top student who graduated from an Ivy League school, an elite who landed million-dollar deals during my Wall Street internship, not some fool who would willingly turn herself blind and deaf for so-called love. I suddenly didn't want to argue anymore, nor did I want to hysterically fight for the child, because I knew Noah had already been brainwashed. The more agitated I got, the more I'd be proving the accusation of being a crazy woman. I needed to stay calm. I needed to be like a hunter, patiently waiting for the right moment, then going in for the kill. Fine. I nodded, my expression instantly returning to calm, so calm that Ryan was a bit taken aback. Since you all love playing house so much, then enjoy your little game. I coldly swept my gaze over them, my eyes finally resting on Ryan's face. But don't forget, this is still my house. As long as we're not divorced, half of everything here belongs to me. Ryan froze. He apparently hadn't expected me to mention the word divorce. In his mind, the Rebecca who loved him to death and back could never leave him. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he growled in displeasure. "Bringing up divorce over such a small thing? Rebecca, where are your manners?" "My manners are reserved for humans." I didn't spare them another glance, turning and walking toward the villa's main building. Pushing open the door, the interior furnishings hadn't changed, but the atmosphere that once belonged to me had faded. In the entryway, there were a few pairs of pink slippers that weren't mine, and the vase in the living room held lilies I didn't like. I headed straight for the study on the second floor. There was something I needed there. I turned on the computer and inserted the USB drive I had prepared long before leaving the hospital. It contained the divorce agreement drafted by my lawyer, along with an asset list that could cause an earthquake in the Sutherland family. Ryan followed me in. He stood at the doorway with his arms crossed, his tone still arrogant. "What the hell do you want? If you're doing this to get attention, let me tell you, this kind of tactic is pathetic. I'm having dinner with a VP from JP Morgan Chase tonight, and I need you there. Hurry up and change your clothes and put on makeup. Don't embarrass me." He was still talking to me in that tone he used to order his subordinates around. I pressed the print button and the printer started whirring. I turned around, leaned against the desk, and looked at this man who once made my heart race. Now he just looked like a clown to me. "If you want me to play along with your act tonight," I pointed at the printer spitting out paper, "then sign this agreement first. Otherwise, I don't mind having a nice long chat at the dinner party about allergies and miscarriages." Ryan's expression finally changed. He strode over, grabbed the still warm agreement, barely glanced at the title before ripping it in half and throwing it hard in my face. "Rebecca, you want a divorce? Dream on. Unless I die, you'll never escape the title of Mrs. Sutherland in this lifetime." The sharp edge of the paper cut across my cheek, leaving a red mark. But I didn't flinch. I watched the shredded pieces of paper flutter through the air, a cruel smile tugging at the corner of my lips. "Unless you die?" "Ryan, you don't know. In this story, the damn villain often really doesn't make it to the end." The night had grown late. The Hamptons Villa district was so quiet you could only hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the beach. After Ryan tore up the divorce agreement, he stormed out of the study. He didn't leave the villa, but went to the guest room downstairs. Or rather, he'd already made that his master bedroom now. I sat alone on the spacious double bed, staring at the huge wedding photo at the headboard. In the photo, I was smiling so sweetly, nestled in Ryan's arms, as if I had the whole world. And Ryan, though his expression was indifferent, at least his gaze back then was focused. How ironic. This photo was like an eye, constantly reminding me of my past foolishness. I got up and walked barefoot to the walk-in closet. In the corner, that long object wrapped in a dust cover stood quietly. It was Ryan's most treasured set of titanium alloy golf clubs, a coming-of-age gift from his father, with the Sutherland family crest engraved on each shaft. I undid the dust cover, and the cold metallic touch spread from my fingertips throughout my entire body. I gripped the heaviest one, the one wood. This golf club had appeared countless times in Ryan's boastful conversations, polished and maintained by him like a sacred relic. In this house, its status was perhaps higher than mine. I dragged the club back to the bedroom. The metal club head scraped across the carpet, making a dull sound. And I stood in front of that wedding photo, taking a deep breath. At this moment, what I thought of wasn't the 5 years of swallowing my pride. wasn't the child who never got a chance to see the world, but the strange, fear-filled look in Noah's eyes when he looked at me this afternoon. That was the most precious thing they took from me. I raised the club. Bang! A thunderous crash tore through the night's silence. The glass on the wedding photo shattered instantly, like countless diamonds dancing in the air. The sweetly embracing couple was ruthlessly split apart by the cracks, torn to pieces. I didn't stop. 1 swing, 2 swings, 3 swings. I swung the club like I was venting, smashing the frame that symbolized fake happiness, smashing the unopened bottle of red wine on the nightstand, smashing the display shelf filled with Ryan's trophies. The sound of glass shattering, the sound of metal hitting wood, wove together into a mad symphony. The door was slammed open. Ryan rushed in wearing a bathrobe, his face filled with a terror he'd never shown before. Emily followed close behind, and seeing this scene, her scream caught in her throat as she covered her mouth with both hands. "What are you doing?" Ryan roared as he charged over. "Are you crazy? That's my trophy, that's—" His gaze fell on the golf club in my hand, and in that instant, his heartache nearly spilled from his eyes. "That's my golf club." I turned around, chest heaving violently, still gripping tightly that now slightly bent titanium golf club. Shards of glass covered the floor, glinting coldly under the lights. My feet had been cut, blood seeping into the carpet, but I couldn't feel the pain. I looked at Ryan, raising the club to point at him, like a Valkyrie who had just come down from the battlefield. "Does it hurt?" I asked, my voice cold as if from hell. Hurting over this broken stick? Hurting over these dead things? Ryan looked at my crazed state, and for the first time didn't dare rush up to snatch the club away. He stood beyond the wreckage on the floor, his eyes showing not just anger, but a trace of deep wariness. "Rebecca, you're really sick. You need to see a doctor. I'll have a psychiatrist come over tomorrow." "I'm not sick." I cut him off, closing in step by step. "Ryan, I hurt too. I hurt for that child who never got to form. I hurt for Noah, who you brainwashed. I hurt for myself, who was a fool for 5 years. I walked up to him and hurled the bent club at his feet, sending it crashing to the ground with a loud clang. Ryan instinctively stepped back, nearly stepping on Emily behind him. "This club, a gift for you to remember me by," I said with a cold sneer. "It's just like our marriage. Looks expensive and solid, but in reality I can smash it to pieces any time I want. You—" Ryan trembled with rage, his face turning the color of pig liver. "You unreasonable shrew." Emily seemed to have finally found her script again at this moment, peeking out from behind Ryan, her voice trembling with a tearful tone. "Sister Rebecca, how could you do this? This was Ryan's most precious thing. Are you angry because I'm here? Then I'll just leave. I don't want to ruin your relationship." "Shut up." I whipped my head around to look at her, my gaze sharp as a knife. "Emily Thorne, drop that cheap act of yours. There's no audience here, just garbage all over the floor. You want to leave? Fine. Take this trash of a man and get lost." Emily was intimidated by my presence and actually shut her mouth, only daring to look at Ryan with those pitiful doe eyes full of grievance. Ryan took several deep breaths, trying hard to maintain his dignity as the Sutherland family heir. He straightened the collar of his robe and looked at me like I was garbage. "Fine, just fine. Rebecca, since you're so hell-bent on destroying this family, then I'll grant you your wish." He bent down to pick up the bent golf club, caressing it like a dead lover, his eyes sinister. "Starting tomorrow, I'm freezing all your credit cards. Since you want a divorce, you'll leave with nothing. I'll make you understand that without the Sutherland family, you, Rebecca Vance, are nothing. And Noah," he added viciously, "I'll apply for a restraining order from the court, citing your violent tendencies and mental instability to keep you from getting within 500 feet of Noah." My heart clenched violently, the instinctive fear of a mother, but I didn't show it. I knew that the moment I showed weakness, I'd lose. Then let's wait and see. I lifted my chin and stared back at him without backing down. Let's see who ends up ruined in the end. Ryan let out a cold snort, pulling Emily as he turned to leave. When he reached the door, he stopped without looking back. Clean this up yourself tonight. Tomorrow morning, I don't want to see any broken glass. The door slammed shut. I stood amid the wreckage, looking at that ruined wedding photo. Ryan's face in the picture had been scratched beyond recognition, leaving only one cold eye staring at me. Clean up? Number. I'm not cleaning up a damn thing. I'm going to let these shattered pieces stay right here on the floor, just like my broken marriage, a constant reminder to everyone who walks into this room, the Rebecca who used to take everything lying down is dead. I took out my phone and dialed a number. That was the phone number of Michael, a famous private detective in New York, that my best friend Emily had given me before. Hello, Mr. Michael? I'm Rebecca Vance. I want to hire you to investigate someone. Who? A deep, lazy voice came from the other end of the line. I glanced at the tightly closed door, a bloodthirsty, cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. Emily Thorne. I want all the dirt on her, especially those years she spent studying abroad in Europe. Whether it's sleeping around, abortions, drugs, or any other dirty little secrets, as long as it's real, I want it all. As long as the price is right, Mrs. Vance, I could strip the underwear off the devil himself for you. Money is not an issue, I said. I want her reputation ruined before the Thanksgiving dinner next week. Hanging up the phone, I gazed at the pitch-black sea outside the window. A storm was coming, and this time, I would be the one controlling the thunder and lightning. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the villa was suffocatingly oppressive. I didn't cry and beg for mercy like Ryan expected, nor did I panic over my credit cards being frozen. On the contrary, I remained unusually calm. I still stayed in the master bedroom, ignoring the mess all over the floor, putting on my finest clothes every day, drinking tea and reading in the garden. As for Noah, Ryan really did send him away. Supposedly, he was sent to an expensive boarding preschool program under the pretense of keeping him away from this unhealthy family environment. I knew this was actually to isolate me, to prevent me from counter-brainwashing the child. But I wasn't in a hurry. I knew that forcing things now would only backfire. I had to pull out that poisonous thorn first. These past few days, Emily still came and went like the lady of the house. She played the gentle and understanding confidant in front of Ryan and put on the airs of the future mistress in front of the servants. Whenever we crossed paths in the hallway, she would always flash that pitying smile of a victor, as if I were some discarded wife about to be swept out the door. Sister Rebecca, if you're short on money, I can lend you some first. Once she deliberately waved the black card Ryan gave her in front of me. Ryan said he's afraid you'll starve out there, but he can't bring himself to come find you. See, you're still in his heart. Looking at that hypocritical face of hers, all I wanted was to splash that pot of hot tea on it. But I held back. No need, Emily. I smiled faintly. Save it to buy yourself something to cover your shame. After all, some things, once exposed, can't be bought back no matter how much money you have. Emily's expression shifted slightly, as if she sensed something, but she quickly returned to that innocent look. I don't understand what you're talking about. You will. Just 2 days before Thanksgiving, Michael asked me to meet him at a hidden cafe in Manhattan. He handed me a thick craft paper envelope, his face carrying an expression like he was about to watch a good show. Mrs. Vance, I have to say, this love rival of yours has quite the colorful life. Michael lit a cigarette and blew out a smoke ring. If this stuff gets out, forget marrying into a wealthy family. She'll become a rat crossing the street in all of New York's high society. I opened the envelope and photos slid out one by one. Wild parties in Ibiza, back alleys of Amsterdam's red light district, high-stakes gambling at Paris underground casinos. In the photos, Emily was heavily made up, eyes glazed over, surrounded by men of various skin colors, holding unidentified white powder or syringes in her hands. How was this the pure white moonlight who wouldn't even dare step on an ant in front of Ryan? This was practically a fallen angel's party diary. What shocked me even more was a photocopied medical record and a muffled recording. It was a recording of Emily bragging to a so-called bestie after drinking. So what if I had my uterus removed? I never planned on having kids for those stupid men anyway. As long as I tell Ryan I stayed single all this time because I didn't want to put him in a difficult position or make up some other tragic excuse, he'll only feel more sorry for me. That idiot still thinks I'm a virgin to this day. Ha 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 ha. The laughter in the recording was sharp and piercing, full of disdain and exploitation toward Ryan. My fingers holding the voice recorder trembled slightly, not from anger but from excitement. This was the nuclear weapon I needed. How did you get all this? I asked Michael. In our line of work, we naturally have our channels. Michael shrugged. That bestie in the recording is short on cash for drugs right now, so I just gave her a little sponsorship. As for the medical records, she left those at a private clinic. It's a bit of a Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act violation. But as long as you don't use it directly as evidence in court and just accidentally show it at a family gathering, who's going to do anything to you? I nodded with satisfaction and took out an envelope from my bag, pushing it toward him. Inside was a check for a considerable sum. Cash I'd gotten from selling off that closet full of Hermes bags, thanks to Ryan not having had time to cut off my secondhand luxury goods trading channels yet. Nice work, Michael. The remaining balance, I'll pay after Thanksgiving. Walking out of the cafe, the cold wind of New York hit me in the face, but I felt hot all over. Thanksgiving. That was the holiday the Sutherland family valued most. Every year on this day, Ryan's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Sutherland, who cared extremely about face and bloodline, would host a grand dinner at the family estate. All the Sutherland family relatives and business partners would be there. That was the stage Ryan and Emily wanted to perform on the most. It was also the execution ground I had carefully prepared for them. I got into a taxi and sent a text to my lawyer. Have the divorce agreement ready. Also, help me draft a complaint against Emily Thorne for suspected psychological fraud and child abuse. Doesn't need to be too formal, just to scare people. When I returned to the villa, Ryan was in the living room trying on the suit he would wear to the dinner party. Seeing me come back, he let out a cold snort. Where have you been running off to these past 2 days? Since you're back, you have to attend tomorrow's dinner party, too. He commanded as if it were only natural. Mom said that even though we're getting divorced, we still have to keep up appearances in front of others, especially since people from the Morgan family will be there too. Don't let them see us as a joke. Dress decently tomorrow. Don't look like a stray dog. Also, he added, Emily will be there tomorrow too. Mom really likes her and specially invited her. Know your place when the time comes and don't cause trouble for her. Looking at this man who thought he had everything under control, I suddenly felt a bit sorry for him. He still didn't know that the white moonlight he held in the palm of his hand was actually a black rose that had long since rotted through. Don't worry, Ryan. I smiled as I walked past him, casually adjusting his bow tie for him, my movements as gentle as a perfect wife's. Tomorrow, I'll definitely give you all an unforgettable respectability. Ryan seemed confused by my compliance, looking at me somewhat suspiciously. You better keep your word. I turned and went upstairs, the smile on my lips vanishing instantly. You mean it? Of course. I will tear your so-called dignity to shreds, leaving not even a scrap behind. I walked into the bedroom and took out a red gown from deep in the closet. It was a dress as passionate as fire. Ryan once said it was too flashy, unbefitting of Mrs. Sutherland's image, so he never let me wear it. But tomorrow I would wear it like a flame of vengeance, burning down all this hypocrisy, and that titanium alloy golf club I'd tossed in the corner. I thought about it, picked it up, and put it in a golf bag. Since it's Thanksgiving, I should bring a gift, shouldn't I? A gift to return to him. The Sutherland family estate sat on the north shore of Long Island, a typical Gilded Age building, grand, ancient, and exuding a musty air. Every blade of grass and tree here was meticulously trimmed. Every paving stone seemed to speak of this family's glory and rules. But today, this place would witness a complete upheaval. I wore that bright red backless evening gown, my hair styled in an elegant updo, my face painted with bolder makeup than I'd ever worn before. The moment I walked into the banquet hall, the once noisy hall fell into a brief silence. All eyes were on me. Some were amazed, some were surprised, but most were whispering. After all, in their impression, the daughter-in-law of the Sutherland family was always in an understated suit, like a porcelain doll with no presence. But today, I was aggressively beautiful. Mrs. Eleanor Sutherland sat at the head of the main table. Seeing my outfit, her brow immediately furrowed. She wore a deep purple velvet gown with a large emerald necklace around her neck, the symbol of the Sutherland family's matriarch. "Rebecca." She didn't lower her voice, her tone full of reproach. "What's wrong with you? Dressing like this? Where's your decency? Today is Thanksgiving, not a Hollywood red carpet show." Ryan, sitting beside her, also looked displeased, hissing in a low voice. "Didn't I tell you to dress more appropriately? Go change right now." Across from them, Emily was wearing a white lace dress, sitting there demurely, looking just like a pure little white flower. She looked at me, a flash of jealousy in her eyes, but quickly replaced it with a concerned expression. "Sister Rebecca, your outfit is really beautiful. It's just, isn't it a bit too extravagant? But it's okay. We're all family. No one will mind." See, there it is again, that backhanded compliment. I ignored their accusations and didn't go change my clothes. I walked to the dining table with a smile, but instead of sitting down, I slammed the golf bag I'd brought down hard on the ground. The bang startled all the guests present. "Sorry, mother-in-law Ryan." I glanced around at everyone, my gaze finally landing on Mrs. Eleanor's well-maintained yet mean face. "This outfit of mine is to match today's special program. After all, some people wear sheep's clothing to play innocent, so I've got to wear my battle gear to hunt wolves, right? What nonsense are you spouting?" Mrs. Eleanor's face darkened. "What sheep's clothing and hunting wolves? Rebecca, if you're here to act crazy, get the hell out right now. Don't rush." I bent down, pulled out the slightly deformed titanium alloy golf club from the bag, and weighed it in my hand. "I'm here to deliver a gift." Seeing that club, Ryan's face instantly turned deathly pale. It was the same club I'd smashed him with just a few days ago. How could he not recognize it? "Rebecca, why did you bring this here?" He shot up from his seat. "Security, drag her out. Nobody move." I shouted sharply, swinging the club in my hand hard at an empty wine glass nearby. Crack! The wine glass shattered on impact, glass shards flying everywhere. Several security guards who were about to step forward were stunned by my presence and didn't dare move for the moment. The whole room fell into dead silence. "Since everyone's here, let's take this lovely occasion to clear some things up." I pulled out a stack of photos from my clutch, the highlight reel Michael had given me. I walked up to Emily, looking down at her from above. That perfectly composed face of hers finally showed a hint of terror. What are you trying to do?" she asked, trembling. "I want everyone to see just how pure our pristine Miss Emily really is." I flung the stack of photos into the air. The photos fluttered down like snowflakes, landing on the dining table, beside the guests' wine glasses, and on Mrs. Eleanor's lap. The previously quiet banquet hall instantly erupted. Guests picked up the photos, letting out gasps and murmurs of disgust. "Oh my God, isn't this the young lady from the Thorne family? This wild, she always seems so proper. This is the one Ryan's been keeping by his side? Ski-sk, the Sutherland family's taste." Emily looked at those photos, her whole body slumped in the chair like she'd been struck by lightning. She frantically tried to pick up the photos, wanting to cover those disgraceful images, screaming incoherently, "That's not me. Those are photoshopped. They're fake. Rebecca, you're framing me." Framing? I pulled out another document and threw it directly onto the plate in front of Mrs. Eleanor. "Mother-in-law, you've always wanted a grandson, even going so far as wanting Noah to call this lady his mom. Then you'd better look at this. Hysterectomy consent form, signed by Emily Thorne. Reason: severe infection and uterine perforation caused by multiple abortions." Mrs. Eleanor picked up the document, her hands trembling like leaves in the wind. She placed extreme importance on bloodline, on heirs. This document was like a bolt from the blue for her. She suddenly turned to look at Emily, her gaze becoming extremely terrifying. "Is this true?" she asked in a trembling voice. Emily shook her head desperately, crying with tears and snot streaming down. "No, Auntie, that's fake. Rebecca forged it. I can still have children. I really love Ryan." "Whether it's true or not, wouldn't going to the hospital for a checkup tell us?" I twisted the knife coldly. "Or how about listening to this recording?" I pressed the play button on the voice recorder in my hand. Emily's shrill, piercing, mocking laughter instantly echoed throughout the entire banquet hall. "That idiot still thinks I'm a virgin even now, ha ha ha." Ryan's face went from deathly pale to ashen, then to the color of pig liver. He stared at Emily intently, as if looking at a monster he'd never seen before. The white moonlight he'd always held in the palm of his hand, cherished like a treasure, had actually been treating him like an idiot behind his back? "Emily." He gritted his teeth, his voice sounding like it was being squeezed from deep in his throat. "You've been lying to me this whole time?" Emily completely broke down. She threw herself at Ryan and hugged his leg. "Ryan, let me explain. I was drunk and talking nonsense. I love you. I really do love you." Ryan kicked her away, brushing off his pants with disgust, as if he'd gotten something dirty on them. I'd also had enough of this dog-eat-dog show. "All right, show's over." I gripped the cue stick in my hand and walked to the center of the dining table. It was a priceless antique long table, covered with crystal glasses and silver cutlery, with that massive baccarat crystal chandelier hanging above it. This was the respectability the Sutherland family was so proud of. Fake respectability. Since this family is already rotten to the core, let's just destroy it completely. I raised the cue stick high and swung it down onto the dining table with all my strength. Crash! With a loud bang, the plates and wine glasses on the table flew up from the impact, soup splattering everywhere. But that still wasn't enough. I swung again, this time aiming for the massive crystal chandelier above my head. "Ah!" The guests screamed and scattered in all directions. Crash! The crystal chandelier was hit, swayed a few times, then came crashing down, smashing right into the center of the dining table with an earth-shattering boom. Countless crystal shards splattered like a rainstorm, smashing the long table that symbolized the family's glory to pieces. The entire banquet hall was a complete mess, with dust flying everywhere. I stood amidst the ruins, my red dress blazing like fire, holding a cue stick in my hand like a god who destroys the world. Madame Eleanor had already fainted from fright, being frantically supported by several servants. Ryan stood there dumbfounded, his face cut by flying glass shards, blood streaming down, but he had no reaction, just staring at me in horror. "Crazy. You've gone crazy," he muttered to himself. I walked up to him and threw the cue stick at his feet, making a crisp clang. "The divorce agreement, I'll have my lawyer send it to you tomorrow." I looked into his eyes and said, enunciating every word, "If you don't sign it, I don't mind sending these photos and recordings to the New York Times. Then, let's see if your Sutherland family's stock price can still hold up." After saying that, I ignored everyone's reactions, turned around and strode toward the door. "Wait!" Ryan shouted behind me. "Noah is still at boarding school. You won't be able to see him." I stopped in my tracks and turned back with a brilliant smile. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I've already notified Michael. Just now, while you were all here watching the show, he's already taken my authorization letter and temporary custody order to pick up Noah from school. Ryan's pupils contracted sharply. No need to see me out, Mr. Sutherland. I pushed open the ballroom doors and the night wind outside lifted my red dress. A black Harley motorcycle was parked at the manor entrance, with Michael sitting on it, holding Noah, who had a small backpack on. Noah's eyes lit up when he saw me, and he shouted loudly, "Mommy!" At that moment, I knew I had won. I had not only won back my dignity, but also won back my world. When Michael handed Noah to me, the little guy was still clutching his toy dinosaur tightly, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mommy, where are we going? Are we going on an adventure?" Noah asked, looking up at me, completely without the distance and fear from that day in the Hamptons. Actually, children are the most sensitive. When all that oppressive control and hypocritical teachings disappear, the bond of blood will instinctively draw them close to the people who truly love them. Yes, an adventure. I crouched down, helped him put on a child-sized helmet, then climbed onto the rumbling Harley. We're going somewhere with no lies and no wicked witches. I started the engine, the thunderous roar drowning out the screams and chaos coming from the manor. I changed out of that cumbersome red dress and put on the leather jacket and jeans I had prepared long ago. At this moment, I was no longer that vase with only the title of Mrs. Sutherland. I am Rebecca Vance, a free soul. Our first stop was a motel in New Jersey. Though it was shabby for Noah, everything here was full of novelty. It was his first time eating this kind of roadside burger, his first time bathing himself without servants attending to him, his first time squeezing into a small bed with me to listen to stories. "Mommy, that auntie before said you were sick and would hurt me. Is it true?" After the lights were off, Noah curled up in my arms and asked quietly. My heart ached slightly and I held him tightly. She was lying. Mommy would never hurt Noah. Mommy loved you too much, so she was locked up by those bad people before. Now Mommy has defeated the monster and rescued you. Wow, is Mommy a superhero? Yes, I'm your superhero. Early the next morning, we hit the road. My goal was to cross America, driving along that legendary Route 66 all the way to the sunny coast of California. There lay my college dreams, the surfing, and the wind of freedom. Along the way, messages from the lawyer kept popping up on my phone. The Sutherland family had blown up. Although I held back the photos and recordings from the Thanksgiving dinner and didn't send them to the media, they had already spread throughout that upper-class circle. Emily became the laughingstock of all New York. Rumor has it she was sent overnight by the Thorne family to a sanatorium abroad, supposedly for recuperation, but really it was house arrest. And Mrs. Eleanor was so overstimulated that she ended up in the ICU. Although they managed to save her, she was left paralyzed on one side and would have to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. That old lady, who was once so high and mighty, always ordering me around, finally tasted the feeling of powerlessness. As for Ryan, the lawyer said he was furious at first, threatening to call the police on me for child abduction and to use every connection he had to destroy me. But after the lawyer sent him the surveillance footage from that dinner party, yes, I also had someone hack into the estate's surveillance system and backed up that spectacular party-crashing show as evidence for self-defense, along with a list of dirt that would be enough to cut Sutherland Group's stock price in half if exposed. He went silent. He had no choice but to stay silent. Because he's a businessman. When it comes to profit, so-called face, so-called anger, all have to take a back seat. But I knew this wasn't over yet. A man like Ryan wouldn't give up easily. He was waiting for me to get tired of playing, waiting for me to run out of money, waiting for me to come crawling back to beg for mercy. But he was wrong. The wheels rolled forward, leaving all that stale past far behind. We ate deep dish pizza in Chicago, saw the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, and screamed at the star-filled sky in the Texas desert. Noah became more and more cheerful, his skin tanned to a healthy wheat color, always wearing a bright smile on his face. I changed too. Those edges that had been bound by the wealthy family's rules grew back out. I cut my hair short and dyed it a striking purple, the color Noah picked. He said it looked like the colors from Power Rangers. Very cool. When I rode my Harley with Noah, speeding through the red rocks of Arizona, I felt an exhilaration like never before. That suffocating feeling of having to live according to a script had completely vanished. Every second now is a life I'm writing myself. However, just as we were about to reach the California border, Ryan's counterattack came. Not through the law, but through public opinion. He played the victim card in the media. In a roadside motel, I saw an exclusive interview playing on TV. Ryan was wearing a black suit, noticeably thinner, looking utterly haggard. He faced the camera, eyes brimming with tears. My wife, Rebecca, suffering from postpartum depression and mental instability, has kidnapped our son. I'm very worried about Noah's safety. He's only 5. Rebecca, if you're watching, please bring our child back. As long as you come back, we can talk about anything. I still love you, and we're still a family. This deeply affectionate performance instantly won countless sympathies. Public opinion online began to shift, and everyone started accusing me of being a crazy woman, a dangerous kidnapper. Some even began doxing my whereabouts, wanting to rescue Noah. Looking at Ryan's hypocritical face on the TV, I wasn't angry at all. Instead, I laughed. Ryan, you're still the same as always. Besides using these dirty tricks to manipulate public opinion, what else can you do? Since you want to play the public opinion war, I'll play along with you till the end. I took out my phone and pulled up a video. It wasn't the video from Thanksgiving, but from even earlier, when I was still asleep and hadn't awakened yet, a clip automatically recorded by the home surveillance. It was during our separation when Noah was still at home. I opened my laptop and logged into a social media account I'd never used before. I already had the title in mind. The Deep Love Truth of a Billionaire. What was his son doing while he was taking care of his mistress? Click send. The show has just begun. Less than an hour after the video was uploaded, the internet exploded. Although the surveillance footage wasn't top-notch quality, every detail was enough to make one's blood boil. On the right side of the frame, Ryan was half lying on the sofa, hand clutching his stomach, his face full of pain. And that pure Miss Emily, wearing a sexy silk camisole nightgown, was gently feeding him medicine, occasionally stroking his chest with her hand. Their eyes were locked in lingering gazes, intimate beyond words. And in the lower left corner of the frame, 5-year-old Noah was sitting alone on the carpet. He tried to hold up his drawing to show his father, but was impatiently pushed away by Emily. Go play somewhere else. Don't disturb Daddy's rest. Noah stumbled, silently retreated to the corner, hugging his knees, his small shoulders heaving with sobs. And that so-called loving father, Ryan, who kept saying, "I'm very worried about Noah's safety," didn't even give his son a single glance the entire time. This 3-minute unedited video was like a loud slap across the face, striking hard against Ryan, who had just been playing the victim on TV. The so-called devoted husband turned out to be a cheating scumbag. The so-called loving father turned out to be a bastard who emotionally abused his children. Public opinion did a complete 180-degree reversal in an instant. The netizens who had been sympathizing with Ryan were now completely furious. "Oh my God, that little boy's crying is breaking my heart." This is what they call high society? This is straight-up abuse. Who is that woman? Dressed like that, prancing around in someone else's home and pushing the kid? Is this the legendary childhood sweetheart? Ryan Sutherland has the nerve to cry on TV. Disgusting. People like him should go to hell. The Sutherland Group's PR department phones were ringing off the hook, and the stock price hit circuit breaker within an hour of market opening. The board members who had been waiting to see how things played out couldn't sit still anymore. calling Ryan one after another to pressure him. By now, we had already arrived at Santa Monica Beach in California. The sun was warm and wild, the sea breeze carrying the taste of freedom. I bought Noah a huge ice cream and watched him chase seagulls on the beach with a group of kids. The phone rang. It was Ryan. This was the 28th call he'd made since the video went viral. I answered leisurely, and Ryan's frantic roar came from the other end. "Rebecca, delete that video right now. Do you have any idea what you're doing? The company's stock dropped 15%. The board is trying to impeach me now." "Oh, only 15%? I held the phone a bit further away, my tone as casual as if discussing today's lunch. "Looks like everyone's tolerance for you is still pretty high." "What the hell do you want?" Ryan's voice was already trembling, a reaction of extreme anger and fear mixed together. "Money? I'll give you however much you want. Just put out a statement saying that video was a misunderstanding, that we separated because of incompatibility, not cheating. What do I want?" I gazed at the azure sea in the distance and took a deep breath of the salty air. "Ryan, I want a divorce, an unconditional divorce. Custody of Noah goes to me. You'll not only pay substantial alimony, but also transfer those 2 California properties under your name to me as emotional compensation for Noah." "Impossible! That's tens of millions in assets. And there's no way I'm giving up custody. He's the eldest grandson of the Sutherland family." "Then there's nothing left to talk about," I said coldly. "I've already had my lawyer compile all those wonderful photos and recordings of Emily. If I don't see a signed divorce agreement by tomorrow morning, those things will appear on the front pages of all the major tabloid magazines. I've already thought of the headline: 'The Rise of a High Society Mistress, from Europe's red light district to a Manhattan estate.' Sia." The other end of the line fell into a deathly silence. I knew I had him by the throat. For the Sutherland family, who placed extreme importance on family reputation and business interests, these waves of scandals, one after another, would be fatal. "Fine." After a long while, Ryan said through gritted teeth, his voice sounding like it was being squeezed out from between them, "I'll sign. But I have one condition. These matters can never be brought up again. We need to sign a confidentiality agreement." "No problem." I agreed readily. "As long as the money's in place and the papers are in my hands, I have zero interest in your dirty laundry." Hanging up the phone, I let out a long breath of relief facing the ocean. It was finally over. The next day, the lawyer flew to California with the divorce agreement that was barely cold yet. Every single clause on it had been executed according to my demands. Ryan's signature was scrawled, and you could even tell his hand had been shaking when he signed. But I didn't care. I had obtained freedom for Noah and me, along with enough wealth for us to splurge for several lifetimes. I bought a white villa with a garden by the seaside. Noah enrolled in the best private school locally, but his favorite thing was still learning to surf at the beach after school. I also picked up my profession again. I opened an investment consulting firm locally, no longer dependent on anyone, carving out a bloody path in the business world with my own mind. Occasionally, I would see news about the Sutherland Group on financial news. I heard that Ryan was kicked out of the board's inner circle because of this series of scandals. Although he was still the heir in name, his power had already been hollowed out by the side branches. Mrs. Eleanor, due to health reasons, could only live in a sanatorium year-round. As for that insufferably arrogant Emily, rumor has it she attempted suicide in a psychiatric hospital abroad and went completely insane. Evil people have their own evil people to grind them down. As for me, I had already started a new life. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 3 years later. The California sunshine seemed to have a kind of magic, able to heal all the scars. Noah was already 8 years old, had grown quite a bit taller, with healthy, wheat-colored skin, and when he smiled, he showed a row of white teeth, like a sunny little prince. He had completely forgotten about that always gloomy Hampton manner and no longer mentioned that father who was cold to him. I had changed too. The purple hair had faded away, replaced by my natural black hair, but I still liked riding my motorcycle to go for a spin. In this vibrant little town, I met Jack. Jack is Noah's surfing coach, a sunny guy 5 years younger than me. He doesn't have a prestigious family background or billions in assets, but he nervously checks the ingredients of every dish when I have allergies and makes an ugly but delicious dinosaur cake by hand for Noah's birthday. He made me realize that true love is respect, is care, is keeping you at the tip of your heart, not treating you as an accessory. This day was the day Noah won the junior surfing championship. The beach was buzzing with noise. Jack lifted Noah high up onto his shoulders, the two of them grinning like idiots. I was holding my phone, live streaming this glorious moment for them. Quite a few fans flooded into the live stream. Over the years, I've often shared my California life, and although many people don't know my past, they all love watching this energetic mother-son duo. Just then, an abrupt comment scrolled across. "He's watching." I froze for a second, not processing it. Right after, my phone received a private message. It was from an unfamiliar account containing only a photo. The photo was taken in a hospital room. Ryan Sutherland lay in the hospital bed, so thin he was unrecognizable, his eye sockets deeply sunken, tubes sticking out all over his body. He was holding a tablet in his hands, and on the screen was my live stream. That once high-spirited Wall Street elite now looked like a shriveled skeleton. His eyes were fixed dead on the screen, staring at Noah laughing while sitting on Jack's shoulders, his gaze filled with despair, regret, and deep jealousy. Along with the photo came a message sent by Ryan's personal lawyer. "Ms. Vance, Mr. Sutherland has been diagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer and doesn't have much time left. He has watched all of your live streams. He has left all of his remaining personal assets to Noah in his will. He wants to see you one last time, even if just through video." I looked at that photo, and there wasn't a single ripple in my heart. Even that so-called stomach pain setting eventually became an ironic reality. It actually turned into stomach cancer. Is this the ending? That male lead, who once had the protagonist halo in the story and wouldn't die no matter how recklessly he acted, finally paid the price for his arrogance and coldness after losing the protection of the plot, dying alone on a hospital bed with no family, no lover by his side, only able to watch through a screen as the wife and child he abandoned laughed happily in another man's arms. This was crueler than killing him. "Mommy, look!" Noah's voice interrupted my thoughts. He ran toward me holding a golden trophy, with Jack following behind him, a doting smile all over his face. "I saw it! Noah, you're amazing!" I put away my phone, didn't reply to that message, and didn't look at that photo again. I crouched down and gave my son a big hug. Jack naturally wrapped his arm around my shoulder and planted a kiss on my forehead that tasted of sea salt. "What's wrong? You were spacing out just now," Jack asked. "Nothing." I shook my head with a smile, tucking my phone into my pocket. I just saw the ending of a story. That should have ended long ago. And now? Now? I took their hands and walked toward the sea against the sunset. Now is a new chapter. Come on, let's go celebrate. The sea breeze blew away all the gloom. In that distant hospital room in New York, the cardiac monitor let out a long, piercing beep. But that had nothing to do with me anymore. My life had just begun.